Kano happily says that the young man understood everything correctly, and she is counting on him. The maid asks to take at least 1,000 photos. She also adds that Rose's parents will also be very happy about this. Licht is surprised by the word 1,000. Licht says that 1,000 photos is too much, to which Kano says he will give a kilogram of gold for one piece. The young man offers to give all the gold to Rosa, as she knows exactly what to do with it. Suddenly, Dorothy bursts into the conversation, joyfully declaring that she has found a very interesting book. Dorothy says that thanks to the book, she learned a lot of new valuable information, and also casually adds that she would give absolutely any amount for such a book. Licht looks at the book and realizes that it is written in symbols that he has not seen before. He says he doesn't understand anything. The young man asks Dorothy if she understands at least something that is written in the book. The girl replies that, of course, she understands the contents of the book. It just needs some knowledge. Dorothy happily says that in order to read such a book, it is enough to have knowledge gained from the school curriculum. Dorothy reads books one by one quickly. She puts the books she has read next to her, joyfully declaring that they will be removed later anyway. Licht is surprised by the girl's reading speed. Suddenly, Dorothy calls out to Licht, who, apparently, does not expect this, and turns to her friend with a surprised face. The girl says she wants to try something, and asks the young man to stand straight and not move. She holds out her hand to him. Suddenly, a lot of translucent hands appear from the floor, reaching for Licht, who clearly does not expect this. His arms completely wrap around his legs, and the young man exclaims in surprise, first feeling and then seeing this picture. He looks down at his legs, which are constantly shaking from top to bottom, and tries in vain to escape, but his attempt is unsuccessful. Dorothy, watching this picture, feels sorry for Licht and pulls her hands back, throwing the simple word, cancel, in his direction. Licht rubs his legs with numerous sighs, letting Dorothy know that the young man did not like this experience too much. He asks if it was written about this in the book. The girl says that in the book it was written practically about what she did, but there is a slight difference. In the book, a corpse may be needed for this. Dorothy says that since there is no dead body nearby at the moment, she will try later. Dorothy sighs dejectedly and is sad that there are no enemies nearby, and the new skill cannot be applied to any of them. Licht asks her friend not to say such terrible things. The young man cautiously, but with interest, asks what Dorothy is going to do with the corpse, to which she replies that she wants to put the soul into the dead body and control it. However, the girl interrupts her speech and looks closely at Licht. She says there is one small but. She turns to Licht and says that such a skill is not necessary with him, since this method requires time and a dead body, and it also does not work in any situation. Dorothy looks piteously at Licht and admits that she is a little jealous of him, to which he responds with a questioning look. Licht perplexedly asks Dorothy what she means, to which she hurries to answer that it's nothing, refuses this question. The next morning, while Licht is in the Rose family castle, sleeping in one of the many rooms, someone comes to wake him up. She asks Licht to wake up. The man, without waiting for Licht to wake up, begins to shake him so that he wakes up as soon as possible. This person turns out to be Rose. The girl sincerely does not know what to do, and, glancing furtively around, decides to act radically, as she must wake up a friend. She, saying that there is no other way out, leans towards the young man. Her intentions are known only to herself. Rose leans closer to Licht, but the young man suddenly opens his eyes and looks at his friend with obvious bewilderment. Surprised, rather shocked, Licht looks scared, seeing how Rose bites his hand. He asks what the girl is doing. The young man immediately gets up on the bed and asks if Rose turned him into one of the vampires while he was sleeping, to which the girl replies that she is glad that Licht has finally woken up. The girl, hearing such assumptions from her friend, indignantly rushes to say that she did not turn him into anyone. She adds that she only drank some blood in order to wake up the young man. Rose explains to the still terrified Licht that he will not become a vampire until his saliva gets into his body, so the young man has nothing to fear. Hearing this, he almost completely calms down. Licht doesn't waste any time and goes back to sleep, outraged. Rose shouts that if he does this now, then her attempts to wake up her friend will be in vain. The girl does not give up hope of lifting her friend from the bed and continues her futile attempts to wake him up. She says if he doesn't wake up right now, he'll skip breakfast and be hungry all day. Licht still wakes up and goes to breakfast. When they come down, they see Dorothy sitting at the table, who wishes the young man good morning, and he responds in kind. Suddenly, Rose notices that neither her father nor her mother are at the dinner table with them. She hurries to ask where her parents are, to which Dorothy replies that she saw them hurriedly leave somewhere. Rose says it bothers her. She worries about her father and mother and the reason they left the room so hastily. Licht says that Rosa should not worry prematurely and take everything so seriously. He adds that perhaps they just want to arrange a surprise in honor of their daughter's return. Rose hopes that this is indeed the case. Dorothy reproaches Licht for being overly optimistic and says that enemies could suddenly descend, so you should not be so enthusiastic about the care of Rose's parents. Licht remarks that if they had been attacked, the castle would hardly have been so quiet. Rose happily agrees with him and says that it sounds quite logical. Dorothy wants to say something, but their dialogue is interrupted by a maid running into the dining room. The maid runs into the dining room, opening the doors that uninvited guests have come to the castle, which, of course, is very bad. Dorothy, Licht and Rose turn in fright at the bustling maid and realize that something is definitely wrong. Licht, Rose, and Dorothy are frightened and ask the maid which uninvited guests decided to visit the castle. The maid, fussing very much, quickly says that the castle was attacked by vampire hunters 3 people. Rose clarifies the number of hunters, receiving the same answer as before. There are 3 of them. The maid tensely continues to say that other maids have gone against the hunters. She looks like she's worried about them. Licht's expression changes, his voice becomes firmer, and he confidently says that he will also go to help the maids. The young man is more serious than ever. The same can be said about his girlfriends. They also decide to go with Licht to help other maids. Licht, Rose, and Dorothy run out of the dining room, and, in a very hurry, run through the numerous corridors of the castle, while they are watched by a group of guys from around the corner who are clearly plotting something. The young man in black clothes, whose face is covered, looks extremely insecure. He turns to his partner, whose name is Alf, and asks him if he is confident in his actions, knowing that it is quite dangerous to implement his plans. The young man with wavy hair, the one whose name is Alf, says that in no case will he abandon his plan, since a generous reward is promised for him. He tells his partner that if they complete the task, they will not be able to work for a long time. It turns out that the guy in the black clothes is called Wait. A tall blonde woman addresses him, saying at the same time that he looks pathetic, having walked such a distance to the right place, and then going to run away in disgrace. Wait says worriedly that the castle looks completely different from the photos, which is very annoying. He says Alf should have found out the details in advance. Alf tells him to shut up, explaining that the castle is just big. The girl enthusiastically turns to Wait, saying that it's worth not worrying, but thinking about the reward for the task, which you can live on for the rest of your life. Alf asks Wait not to forget about his strength and not to lose heart in any case. Wait calms down a little, agrees with the guys and apologizes to his partners, the alphas and the girl, who, as it turns out, is called Renee. The group decides to proceed according to plan. It turns out that their plan is that they will attack from 3 sides so that the enemy has little chance to dodge. Alf says that according to the information he has, there are 2 vampires living in the castle who will be very easy to defeat, cornered and not given a single chance of salvation. Renee looks very confident and ready to act, while Wade is practically shaking with fear and anxiety. 3 guys enter the castle, and Alf concludes that the structure is really huge. Alf looks around. Wandering through the corridors, he realizes that the atmosphere in the hall is chic and even luxurious. He wonders how long it will take them to complete this seemingly easy task. Suddenly, the trio of Alpha, Wade and Renee, are noticed by a maid named Kano and shouts to Dorothy to come to the rescue as soon as possible. Alf pulls out a sharp dagger and, bringing it to Kano's back with a flourish, orders her to be silent. But the girl does not listen and continues to call Dorothy for help. The young man decides to silence the maid and pierces her with a dagger, almost touching her heart, thereby bringing the girl very severe pain. Alf pulls the dagger out of her chest and angrily says he was just acting on reflex. Suddenly, the young man notices something under his feet. It turns out that a lot of arms appear from the floor, wrapping around the legs of the Alpha. He sees it and screams in surprise. In fact, this is Dorothy using a newly learned skill that the girl managed to practice on Licht. Hands from the floor slowly, but surely continue to wrap around the legs of the Alpha, who is very much afraid of such a situation. The young man still finds a way to break out of the bonds that bound his legs, fighting off some of their parts with his feet, and from others with a dagger. Dorothy sees a dead maid on the floor and calmly asks her for forgiveness, justifying herself by saying that she simply did not have time. Alf sees Dorothy, and his face is distorted by an evil grin. He is glad that he has finally found one of the vampires, and addresses her, calling Dorothy the little vampire. Suddenly, Alf notices that something is wrong with this vampire. The girl stands and looks at the young man in disbelief. Alf realizes that there is no vampire in front of him, but a very ordinary person. He gets angry when he realizes this, and orders her to put her hands behind her head and kneel down, and says that if she does that, he will let her live. Suddenly, a staff hung with charms appears in Dorothy's hand, and a translucent creepy ghost appears next to her. She asks how Alf will accept such actions of hers. The young man, watching this picture, loses his temper even more and faster, and decides to attack the girl. He pulls out the multi-pronged dagger again and flies at Dorothy to deliver the fatal blow. Dorothy, as if she had long anticipated such a development, instantly dodges Alpha's blow. Realizing this, the young man realizes that he has contacted a far from ordinary girl, which scares him. He concludes that Dorothy is not so simple and knows how to fight people, and is also able to make traps, so you should be careful with her. Without letting the Alpha fully realize what is happening to the end, Dorothy once again uses a newly learned skill, loudly shouting, "Hands up," after which many translucent hands break out of the ground and rush to grab the Alpha. Alf, already taught by bitter experience, shouts that this trick will not work a second time, and dodges the moving limbs. He abruptly flies up to Dorothy, who clearly does not expect an attack, and kicks the girl in the stomach with a knee. Dorothy falls to the ground, clutching her stomach and writhing in pain. The girl clearly did not expect such a dishonorable blow, but she is in no hurry to give up. Alf proudly and joyfully declares that he knew about his superiority in close combat. He grins and offers to arrange for Dorothy to at least stay alive. Dorothy laughs softly, and her face contorts with pain and amusement. She tells the Alpha that the young man did not even dream of such a scenario, openly mocking him. Alf, hearing outright ridicule in his direction, gets even angrier and decides to kill Dorothy anyway, intending to launch another attack. He runs towards her with a dagger in his hand to make a fatal decisive blow while Dorothy stands still. He screams for her to die as soon as possible. Dorothy abruptly raises her foot and with one blow easily knocks the dagger out of the Alpha's hands, and it clatters to the floor. Alf thinks Dorothy is very stupid and even admits to himself that he feels a little sorry for the girl. He grabs her by the throat and tries to strangle her. Realizing his superiority in close combat, he knocks Dorothy to the floor and tries to strangle her. Squeezing her throat harder, Dorothy wants to knock him off, but in vain. The girl's eyes gradually close from lack of oxygen, and she almost loses consciousness when suddenly something strange happens. Someone gets up to the Alpha from behind and stabs him in the back with his own dagger. The young man clearly did not expect this. He can't figure out who did it. He turns around and sees a maid standing behind him, seemingly recently killed by him, with a faded look. She calmly holds his dagger in both hands and no longer accepts any attempts to act. While Alf is bleeding, he remembers that he killed the maid a few minutes ago, but is no longer sure about it. It all seems very strange to him. Dorothy coughs loudly due to the fact that they tried to strangle her, and makes every effort to finally push the almost dead Alpha off her. She touches her neck and sadly notices that after such events, there will definitely be a bruise on her throat, which is not very good. She turns to the maid and asks her forgiveness for making the maid a decoy, as a result of which she was killed. The spirit that possessed the maid's body leaves him, and the lifeless corpse falls on Dorothy, while the girl manages to catch it. She notices that this is the first time she has found herself in such an unusual situation, so she realizes that she is really lucky. Dorothy concludes that the spell, which she considered completely useless, unexpectedly helped her pleasantly in such an emergency situation. Dorothy sits down wearily on the floor while the bodies of the Alpha and the maid lie next to her. She thinks with genuine interest about how Rose and Licht are doing now, and what they are doing. At this time, Renee walks through the corridors and at the same time continues to kill vampire maids who are trying, if not to stop the girl, then to detain her. She kills the maids mercilessly, using a thin and sharp sword, stabbing them in the chest, and thus inflicting fatal wounds. Renee is interested, thinking about how things are going with Alf and Wait, not at all suspecting what happened to her first partner. She comes across another maid on her way, preparing to try to stop a girl who is a vampire hunter. The maid says she won't let Renee go any further under any circumstances. Renee boringly asks what kind of stupid actions the maid is doing. The girl says that the maid's actions remind her of a circus performance. The huntress says that if the maid does not immediately tell where her masters are, she will go to her other 3 dead comrades. The maid cannot and does not want to believe that Renee killed 3 maids. Suddenly, the maid sees the bodies of 3 other workers behind Renee and screams in horror. She is both scared and hurt to see her comrades killed. Renee menacingly says that if the maid does not immediately reveal the location of her masters, she will also be dead. She adds that there are quite a lot of people in the castle who can die instead of a maid who is determined to be brave, Renee. Continuing to hear the maid's refusals to hand over her masters, offers to torture her and thereby get the information the huntress needs. Renee says that she will mock the maid in every possible way, using the most sophisticated methods for this, such as, for example, tearing off her fingers, which, of course, scares the almost defenseless maid very much. Renee, seeing the undisguised and clearly readable fright on the maid's face, mocks her and raises his sword high above his head to strike. The huntress says that she would love to mock the maid, but she does not have time for this, so she will have to deal with it quickly. The maid doesn't know what to do. She wants to attack Renee, but she manages to do it before the maid and, shouting the word "for," inflicts a fatal wound on her with her sword. The girl pulls the sword out of the maid's chest, whose lifeless body falls to the ground. Licht finds this picture. He turns to Renee with anger and disappointment in his voice and says that humans and magical creatures are equally cruel, which can't help but upset. Renee looks at Licht and, calling him a clown, looks at him disdainfully. The young man does not answer her. Renee notices that Licht is not a vampire. She is surprised by this, but she does not change her opinion about being in the circus and not in the castle. Renee turns to Licht and asks what he is doing in a place like this castle if he is not a vampire. Licht menacingly asks why she came to the castle and what she forgot in it. The young man is clearly not friendly towards the huntress. Renee repeats his question, making it rhetorical. She grins and says that she came to the castle only to earn as much money as possible. Renee says this while standing next to the bodies of the maids she killed. Licht, disappointed and dejected, says that he understood everything. His gaze expresses both sadness and pain at the same time. Renee, arching an eyebrow, looks at him and asks if he wants to tell her something. She doesn't know what's going on in the boy's head. Suddenly, a magic circle appears next to Renee, and the maids she killed come to life, which naturally surprises and scares the huntress at the same time. She turns around in fright and can't believe her eyes. Licht turns to the maids and asks them to leave the battlefield as soon as possible to protect themselves while he fights with Renee. The young man orders the maids to find Dorothy or Rose and report to them what happened, and if anything, call for help. The maids say that they will do everything and you can count on them. They wish Licht good luck in battle and hurry to leave the corridor as soon as possible. Renee, watching this picture, laughs at Licht's confidence and courage that came out of nowhere. She asks the young man if he is really as brave as he seems, or if he just doesn't want the maids to see him die. Licht is not responding. Renee asks Licht to answer one of her simple questions. She asks what he is doing in this vampire castle, being an ordinary person. She stops for a second, and then continues the question. She asks what Licht is counting on by siding with the vampires, and laughs at him. Licht perplexedly asks in response what is wrong with being in league with vampires. It is clear that he sincerely does not understand what is wrong with such a relationship with another race. Renee tells Licht that the answer to his question is obvious. The fact is that by taking the side of demons or vampires, any person automatically commits betrayal. Therefore, the young man himself is such. Licht is genuinely surprised by such words, but decides not to waste time on useless arguments, and, one might say, agrees with Renee. Renee says that Licht must have gone completely mad, and she promises to destroy the traitor. Licht makes no attempt to attack Renee, while the girl runs at him, holding her sword ready to wound the young man. She hits Licht with a sword, which the guy deflects. Renee tells the young man to burn in hell. Licht stands with a sword, clutching it with both hands. Renee, seeing how Licht fights, says that he is a capable guy, and if he stayed in the human world, he could certainly make good money thanks to his skills. The girl says that Licht's departure from the human world is a real loss for people. Having said this, Renee attacks the young man once again, but he dodges again, replying that he will take her words as a compliment. Renee mockingly asks Licht if he left the human world because he was not needed by anyone, and he had nowhere to go. She adds that if she guessed the reason, she takes back her words. Renee comes close to Licht and abruptly and unexpectedly pierces his chest with his sword, saying goodbye to the guy. He clearly does not expect such an action. Licht concludes that from the very beginning, Renee must not have fought at full strength. The girl abruptly pulls the sword out of his chest. The young man falls to the ground. Renee starts counting the dead again, but then stops and realizes that there are no more people in this place. So the counter is really useless in this situation. She wonders how Alf and Wait are coping with the task. The girl sincerely hopes that their group will be able to corner and destroy the opponents, thereby ensuring a comfortable life for themselves. Suddenly, A movement behind her pulls Renee out of her thoughts. It turns out that Licht did not die at all. He grabs his sword and wounds Renee in the arm while the girl has her back to him. Renee turns to the young man who hit her and cannot believe her own eyes. Licht is sitting next to her and holding a sword near the girl's hand. While blood flows from the limb, she exclaims in surprise that she killed Licht. Licht, healthy and unharmed, finally gets to his feet. Renee can't believe her eyes. She just killed him with her own hands. The girl concludes that Licht must have also resurrected the maids. Suddenly, Renee realizes that if the young man regenerates so quickly, and besides, is endowed with the ability to resurrect others, then her affairs are very, very bad, since the guy is a serious danger. The girl sees Licht running towards her to attack. Suddenly, the girl notices that his blow is a feint, and comes up with a way to use it to her advantage. Renee deflects the blow. The girl asks the young man what happened. She genuinely doesn't understand how he can stand in front of her alive while she killed him with her own hands. Licht decides not to answer this question honestly and speaks in a riddle. Renee asks if Licht sold his soul to the devil or if he did something worse. The young man does not answer this question, but his face instantly darkens after Renee calls Licht a monster. The girl confidently says that she will kill the guy as many times as necessary. The guy is very confused. Renee once again tells Licht to burn in hell, and begins to fulfill his promises regarding his murder. At first, the girl pierces Licht with a sword again, but he is resurrected time after time. No matter how Renee tried to destroy the young man, she could not do anything. The girl tried to behead and cut the guy, but everything was in vain. He was resurrected. Renee can't believe that Licht is actually not just immortal, but not at all being killed. This does not just shock the girl, but really scares her. Licht gets to his feet once again. Renee says that even vampires and zombies die instantly if their hearts are damaged, but the young man can no longer listen to these words. Renee grabs his sword once again and strikes Licht many times with his weapon. The girl furiously wishes the young man dead, but it's useless. Renee calls Licht a mad monster, while inflicting numerous wounds on him, seemingly completely incompatible with life. After killing Licht once again, Renee decides to find his comrades, Alf and Wait, as soon as possible. She turns around and hurries to leave the corridor, but the magic circle appears behind the girl again. Licht comes to life once again, completely unharmed. He asks Renee if the girl really brought her friends to the castle. Renee turns around and is horrified to see a living Licht standing behind her. She decides to find Wait and Alpha as soon as possible and leave the immortal guy. The girl abruptly turns in the opposite direction from Licht and runs away as soon as possible. At the same moment, the restless Wait continues to sneak through the numerous corridors of the vampire castle. He wonders if Alpha and Renee will be able to complete the task, but then adds that he is not sure about it. Trembling with excitement and fear, Wait is once again convinced that neither he, nor Alpha, nor Renee should have agreed to such a strange and dangerous task. The young man is sincerely surprised that he has not yet met a single enemy on the way, which is very strange. It seems to him that someone is luring him into a trap. After that, Wait decides that the vampires are not smart enough for such a plan, and there is nothing unusual at all in the castle. Wait looks very dejected and disappointed, as he realizes that he will probably have to act alone without a team. He sincerely does not understand how it happened, and is really upset by such thoughts. Suddenly, Wait notices that a small black bat is flying towards him. He does not immediately understand what is happening, but then abruptly reaches for the dagger attached to his belt. Wait pulls out a dagger and throws it at the bat with all his might, shouting for it to get out as soon as possible. The dagger pierces the mouse, but it does not fall, dying, but continues to hover in the air. Wait is surprised by such an unusual phenomenon, but immediately realizes that something is clearly going wrong. Suddenly, a young man in black clothes is attacked by a huge number of bats, which are clearly not friendly towards the guy. There are more and more bats every minute, so that the sky seems to darken. The bats rush to attack Wait, and the guy realizes that it will be very difficult to kill them all. He doesn't have enough knives with him to wound every creature. Suddenly, a lot of bats gather in one big pile, the size of a man. They gather into a black human figure, similar in outline to a girl. Unexpectedly for Wait, the mice finally merge into one whole, which turns out to be Rose, clearly indignant about what is happening. Rose smiles and, clearly aware of her superiority, says that Wait should not have attacked the bat, since in this way he let the girl know where he was. Wait looks at Rose in disbelief and suddenly calls her a strange vampire, which, of course, offends the girl. She does not understand what is wrong, how suddenly a young man calls a girl a child, which is not true at all. This completely confuses Rose. Rose sharply replies that she is by no means a child. She also warns Wait that no unexpected blow from him will work, so the guy shouldn't even try to hurt the girl. Suddenly, for Wait, Rose says that she would like to have a conversation with the guy. It is clear that the girl is in no hurry to join the fight. She introduces herself by her name and asks if the knife that Wait used to attack that very bat was poisoned, as the girl feels a slight burning sensation all over her body. Wait dejectedly and even boringly confirms the girl's correctness, which she is very happy about. She enthusiastically claps her hands and says that she thought something was wrong with her. Wait is genuinely surprised that the poison doesn't work. He is really confused by Rose's well-being and her optimism in this situation. Wait keeps thinking about the poison. He understands that even if there wasn't much of it on the knife, Rose should still feel at least a little unwell. Rose, as if reading Wait's mind, asks if the guy thinks that his poison is very weak. Wait is annoyed to hear such a comment in his direction and says that such things have nothing to do with Rose. The girl, hearing such a reproach, hurries to apologize. At one point, her whole face changes its expression. Rose smiles and says that she wants to move on to the main topic of conversation. She asks if the hunters will stop appearing near her house if she kills the 3 who came this time. Wait tenses up when he hears such words. He decides to say something in response. The guy says that the castle could be considered a dangerous place, but thanks to the fact that he and his team will ruin this place, it will cease to be so. Rose says that she understands everything and turns away bored, looking at the walls and the patterns on them. Wait looks at Rose and realizes that in no case should he miss the perfect moment to strike. He notices that the girl is completely different from other vampires, as she looks like an adult, but in fact behaves like a small child. Wait's plan is simple. He hopes to disturb Rose's peace of mind, then suddenly pierce her heart with a poisonous dagger. He also understands that the dagger does not have to be poisoned at all, just one blow to the heart is enough. Rose looks away from Wait and says that she wants to end the conversation there, since she has other things to do besides him. The girl casually replies that it's high time for her to visit Dorothy and Licht. After these words, Wait decides how to knock the girl off balance. Suddenly, the guy turns to Rose and says that she will not be able to meet either Dorothy or Licht, hoping to offend the girl with these words. Wait says that Rose will not be able to see his friends anymore, since they were captured by his partners a long time ago. Upon hearing this, Rose immediately loses her temper and asks the guy to repeat what he just said. She shouts that the guy is not familiar with either Licht or Dorothy, so in his situation, it is better for him to stand silently. Wait continues his lie. He says he heard that Rose's friends were very easy to catch, and asks if the girl is interested in finding out what his partners did to her comrades. Rose gets even angrier and shouts at the guy that he's talking complete nonsense. Rose blushes with anger and can't help herself. Suddenly, the girl flies up to Wada and bites her fangs into his hand, which he clearly does not expect. Rose clenches her teeth on Wait's hand harder and bites through the skin. The guy in the mask winces in pain and screams, but still tries to control himself. Wait decides that it's not time to attack Rose, yet it's too early. He decides to wait until the girl runs to help her friends, and realizes that it is at this moment that he will stick a dagger into her heart and kill her. Wade is absolutely confident that when he attacks Rose from behind, he will not miss in any case. The guy continues his elaborate lie and says that his partners reported to him that Rose's friends had been caught. He also adds that if Rose does not believe his words, he can leave and personally check whether he is lying to her or not. Rose is very angry and does not know what to do. Suddenly, Rose lets go of Wait, turns around and rushes to the aid of her friends, Licht and Dorothy. Wait, seeing this, prepares his dagger. Suddenly, Rose rises high into the air and turns to Wait, who is surreptitiously about to attack the girl. She menacingly orders him to end his life, and to his surprise, he cannot resist her words. With trembling hands, the guy turns his poisoned dagger blade towards himself and makes a big swing. He abruptly plunges the blade into his heart, causing him to fall to the ground and die. At this time, Dorothy rushes to find Licht and, if necessary, help him. She quickly finds an unharmed young man and is very happy about it. An agitated Rose runs up to Licht and asks if he is okay, simultaneously examining the young man for injuries. The girl also asks if something bad has happened to her friend. Licht quietly replies that something has happened. Licht replies that everything is absolutely fine with him. Although you can tell the exact opposite from his face, he is clearly trying to hide something from his girlfriend. Rose excitedly says that she heard that Licht had been caught. She is sincerely glad that the young man was not injured, and the girl shares her thoughts with the young man. Licht, confused and perplexed, says that his opponent has escaped. He also says that a girl fought against him, but since she runs too fast, Licht couldn't catch up with her no matter how hard he tried. Rose enthusiastically suggests that Licht look for the huntress together so that the search would be more effective. First of all, the girl suggests finding and visiting their mutual friend Dorothy. Licht agrees, saying it's a very good idea. Licht asks if Rose knows where Dorothy is at the moment, but the girl realizes that she does not know this. Instead of coming up with different guesses, Rose decides to immediately go in search of a friend. She picks up Licht, spreads her bat wings, and flies up. She tells her friend to hold on as tight as possible as they go on a search. The girl shares her feelings with a friend. She says she won't stand for anything bad to happen to Dorothy. Her face contorts in anger. Rose says that if the people who attacked the castle did something to Dorothy, then she will definitely kill them all with her own hands. Licht says that the girl has quite a fighting spirit. While they are flying in search of a friend, Rose says that she cannot believe that Dorothy lost the battle. The girl says that she would never have been able to lose the battle. Rose cautiously adds that perhaps her friend is lying injured on the ground right now, so they should really hurry up very much. Rose sincerely hopes that her thoughts are false. Rose flies past one of the castle windows with a lighter in her hands. Suddenly, she notices that their mutual friend Dorothy is sitting on the floor in one of the rooms. Rose, seeing the girl, exclaims joyfully. Rose and Licht fly in through the window and hurry to come to Dorothy's aid as soon as possible, if necessary. They see that the girl herself is not injured. There are two dead bodies lying next to her, the maid and the alpha. Dorothy says that Licht did well to come back and complete the task, but immediately after, the girl says that the young man should help her revive the maid, and points to the girl's body. The guy says he will do everything. Licht asks if Dorothy herself is okay, and notices that the girl has something on her neck. Rose looks at her friend's throat and sees a huge bruise on it. She anxiously asks what happened to her friend. Rose begins to worry and fuss, telling her friend how bad it would be if suddenly the scar from this wound would remain for the rest of her life. But Dorothy waves it off, answering that everything will be fine, and she is sure of it. While the girls are talking to each other, trying to figure out if the wound will leave a mark for a long time, Licht uses his resurrection skill and revives the maid killed by Alf. She slowly opens her eyes and regains consciousness. The maid sees Licht and greets him, and the young man answers her. Dorothy is relieved to come to life, seeing that the maid is alive again, which cannot but please the guys. Dorothy examines the maid and realizes that she even has a memory, which is very good. Licht's girlfriend tells him that he has incredible abilities. The young man says that he can definitely do such tasks. Licht tells Rose about the wound on Dorothy's neck. The young man says that if you kill and then resurrect their mutual friend, in which case the marks on her throat will definitely disappear. Rose is afraid of such a proposal. Even realizing its effectiveness, she refuses. The maid sees that Dorothy is injured and offers the girl to bring her something cold to apply it to the wound. Licht says he was fighting with a girl when the hunters attacked the castle. He asks Dorothy to use her spirit summoning skill and track down where Renee has escaped to. Dorothy happily replies that she certainly can. The girl also says that it will not be difficult for her to do this, since it is very easy and fast to search for people with the help of spirits. Suddenly, everything is swarming. Licht, Rose, and Dorothy realize that someone is standing behind them. They are straining very hard, when suddenly the man behind them begins to scream shrilly. The guys start in surprise and also scream in fear, being terrified. Licht, horrified, asks what just happened, while Dorothy is practically sitting on the ground and covering her ears with her hands. Suddenly, Rose realizes what is happening, and her fright instantly passes and is replaced by joy. Rose happily turns around and, seeing a familiar silhouette in front of her eyes for a long time, declares that it is just her father, and therefore there is absolutely nothing to be afraid of. Friends see that Dorothy is not feeling well after the prank and find out if she is doing well. Rose's mother, Camilla, soon appears. They address their daughter's friends as Mr. Licht and Miss Dorothy. Alias and Camilla sincerely thank them for their help, sparing no pleasant and warm words. The girl's parents say admiringly that Licht and Dorothy not only resurrected their beloved Rose, but also helped protect their own home from the attack of hunters, who clearly were not going to leave empty-handed. The whole family and friends of Rosa sit down at the dining table again and say that neither Alias nor Camille should thank them, since there is no need for this. Licht remembers that Renee managed to escape, and hurries to report this to Father Rosa, to which he says that he met her on the way to the castle and solved this problem himself, so there is no need to worry about her. Licht is surprised that it was him. Licht, disappointed and dejected, says that he was the only one who did not provide any help, which is very upsetting for the young man. But after hearing this, Alias says that the guy is wrong and actually helped a lot. Rose's parents look happily at their daughter and her friends, after which they say that they are in debt to the guys, but sincerely grateful for their help. Rose cheerfully and carelessly asks Licht not to be modest and accept the gratitude from her parents. Suddenly, the girl says that after such an exhausting battle, now is the right time to regain strength, and offers to have lunch. She puts a lot of chicken legs in Licht's plate, and he is very surprised by their large number. Rose's mom, Camille, kindly asks the guys when their last day of vacation comes and finds out if it's today. The woman says in frustration that she would really like the 3 guys to stay longer, and very sadly says that, unfortunately, this is impossible. Rose confirms that this is indeed the case. Rose hopefully says that even if she leaves, it does not mean at all that the girl will never see her mother again. She promises that she will definitely visit her next vacation. Camille is very pleased to hear such words from her daughter, whom she has not seen for 100 years. And she says with love in her voice that she will always be glad to see her daughter in the house, so the girl can return to the castle at any time. Dorothy and Licht decide not to disturb the family and not interrupt the idol, so they leave the dining room for a while, leaving Rose alone with her parents, whom the girl has not seen for a very long time. Alias looks at his daughter and says that if she suddenly finds it very difficult at work, she can always turn to him for help, and he will definitely come up with something that can help. Rose replies that she is very grateful to her father for this. A smile lights up Rose's face, and the girl happily says that working in dystopia with the others is a real pleasure. Suddenly, the girl's face takes on an even happier expression, and she admits that she loves all her friends who work with her very much. Rose's parents are happy that their daughter has grown up to be such a beautiful girl. They say they probably shouldn't worry about her well-being at the moment, as they see that everything is fine. Rose smiles happily at her parents. Suddenly, Alias interrupts the family idol with an unexpected question. He decides to ask Rose if the girl thinks that she and Licht would make a very good couple. Rose, hearing such an embarrassing question, instantly blushes and gets lost. The girl is even more embarrassed by the fact that Licht is sitting next to her, but turns her head and sees that her friend is not there, which greatly surprises Rose. Camille joins her husband's idea and says that Licht is a very good, kind, sympathetic, and noble young man, so she doesn't mind if her daughter marries him. Rose blushes even more and asks her mother not to embarrass her. Immediately after that, Alias informs his daughter that he told Licht a lot of good things about her. So this, in his opinion, helped improve the relationship between Rose and Licht. The girl asks her father not to do anything superfluous anymore because she is worried. Rose is confused. She sincerely does not know how. After such awkward situations, she should talk to a friend as if nothing had happened. Alias replies that, judging by his observations of Licht, Rosa is far from indifferent to the young man, which cannot but hurt the girl's feelings. She sighs hopefully. The girl is genuinely surprised, but at the same time very happy about what her father just said. The hope in her heart is growing by the second. She asks if it's true. Rose jumps into her father's arms and he catches the girl. Alias said that he had never deceived his beloved daughter before, and therefore his words can be trusted. Rose agrees with her dad and thanks him from the bottom of her heart. Alias looks at his daughter and realizes that it's time to say goodbye again for an indefinite period, which does not please the man at all. Rose also understands this and is very upset. She gathers her thoughts and, trying not to cry, says that Licht and Dorothy are waiting for her to go to work, but also adds that she will definitely come back again to visit her parents. Alias and Camille are also trying to hold back tears, but Camille is not very good at it. They ask Rose to take care of herself. The girl promises that she will definitely be fine. Rose says it's time for her to leave. She smiles broadly and finally says goodbye to her parents. The girl turns around and runs after Licht and Dorothy to get back to work. After a while, Licht, Dorothy, and Rose return to dystopia again. Licht looks tired enough after another uncomfortable flight. The young man goes to his room and finally enters it. In the room, he is greeted by an enthusiastic Ferris. She congratulates the young man on his return. She happily and contentedly says that she cleaned Licht's room while he was not with them. He does not immediately understand that it is worth responding to such words, and simply says a short thank you to her. The young man remembers what a mess of books he left when he left dystopia, and thinks that it would be better to clean up himself. Ferris asks Licht how his vacation went, thereby distracting him from thinking about the mess he left behind. Licht confidently replies that he really enjoyed visiting Rose. He says that he met the girl's parents, and also tried a lot of new and different delicious food. Ferris replies that she is happy for Licht, as he had a good time. She finds it important to say that in the absence of Licht, Rose, and Dorothy, nothing dangerous happened in dystopia, and there were no problems. Licht listens dejectedly to such news, remembering what happened in the castle. He doesn't understand who exactly was on vacation. Ferris suddenly remembers that she has another piece of news for Licht. The girl says with enthusiasm in her voice that the demon lord was looking for him recently to talk about something with him. Ferris immediately suggests that Licht go to areas together to immediately apologize for everything. Licht doesn't understand what he needs to apologize for, and he asks why Ferris thinks if Arya called him out, it's only because he did something bad. Ferris looks attentively at the young man, who continues to say something to her. Licht decides that he needs to hurry to the demon lord so that she doesn't really fly into a rage. Ferris replies that she has already suggested that the young man go to Arya together to apologize immediately. Licht decides not to start a pointless argument and simply accepts the offer. While Ferris and Licht go to meet the demon lord, the girl notices that Arya wasn't evil when she was looking for Licht, so he probably has absolutely nothing to worry about. The young man thanks Ferris for the information. Suddenly, Licht realizes that it seems to him that something is definitely wrong with the girl. He asks why she is so kind and suspiciously cute that day. The young man asks if something good has happened to the girl. Ferris freezes for a second, but then immediately says that nothing special happened to her, and it just seems to Licht that something is wrong with her. Suddenly, a familiar voice is heard from behind them. It turns out to be the demon lord. She is glad that she has finally managed to find Licht. She clearly does not look angry, which cannot but please the young man. Arya says enthusiastically that she hasn't seen the guy in a long time. She asks Licht if he had a good time on vacation. Licht says that his vacation was really good and fun, but there is only one but. He complains that he hardly feels rested. The demon lord is surprised to hear such words. Arya says that later she will definitely listen to his incredible stories about her recent vacation, but now she has an important matter for the guy. She says something is going to happen to Iris and Tice soon. Two girls who are elves enter the room. They are both blonde, but one is clearly older than the other, which the adult carries on her back. The older girl apologizes to the demon lord for being late for the meeting. Suddenly, Arya says that it's worth putting it off for later, since it's urgent. Ferris stands next to the girls and attentively watches them. Then what is happening around them? The demon lord says that Dorothy and Rose should rest a little longer. Licht, with a note of indignation in his voice, asks why he should work right after the road. Arya says that it happened, and she is powerless in the situation. Suddenly, the demon lord looks at Licht and realizes that something is wrong with the young man. She concludes that something has definitely changed in him during the trip, clearly not for the better. Arya tells the bewildered Licht that he has not changed outwardly. The girl explains that something has definitely changed inside. The demon lord concludes to himself that the aura around Licht has become more clearly visible. Arya realizes that something bad probably happened during the vacation, which greatly affected the well-being of the guy. The demon lord decides not to waste much time on questions and to do it later, when there is more than enough of it. Arya says that while Licht, Rose, and Dorothy were on vacation, there was a lot of work in dystopia. The demon lord emphasizes that there are especially many things for Rose to do. She offers to help Licht and others with their friend's job. The demon lord enthusiastically and glibly raises his hand up and says that now is the time to get to work as soon as possible. Neither Licht nor Ferris nor the elf girls will share Arya's joy. Licht gets to work and, opening another book, suddenly plunges into his memories. The young man realizes that several months have passed since the day Licht resurrected the army of the demon lord. A lot has happened in his life since then. The young man understands that if you compare his life in the world of people before his exile with his current life, then Licht can say with full confidence that he is happy in his, one might say, new life. Licht also remembers the people who betrayed him when the guy was still living in the human world. The young man realizes that the wound from betrayal is slowly but surely healing. Licht concludes that even his perception of his own life has changed. He understands that even his resurrection of the dead skill, which the guy considered useless, turned out to be very important. Licht admits to himself that dystopia is beautiful. The young man adds that dystopia would be an absolutely ideal place if you forget about the number of tasks assigned to him. While the young man is in his thoughts, someone approaches him from behind and addresses the guy by name. It turns out that Ferris is approaching the young man. She asks if it's time for the guy to go on a mission assigned to him by the demon lord. Licht sullenly rises from the table and with a heavy sigh pushes back the chair he was sitting on. Ferris asks his friend what happened to him and if everything is okay. She doesn't understand why the guy looks so depressed. Suddenly, Arya herself comes up to the guy and also asks him what is bothering him, hoping that he will really tell. but Licht says she thinks he's fine, and in fact he's fine. He asks what he needs to do to complete the task. He hopes to finish the case as soon as possible. The Demon Lord decides not to bother Licht with questions, and therefore immediately gets down to business. It turns out that someone is hunting for Burn's head in the latte. Arya glibly declares this to the young man. The Demon Lord says that he will not look for synonyms for words, and will say bluntly, Burn asked her for help and protection. Licht and Ferris listen attentively to the task and remain silent. Licht decides to ask first why. In this case, Burn did not assign the task of her protection to her own henchmen. It seems illogical to him. The Demon Lord replies that this is a reasonable decision, since Burn does not trust his henchmen. It turns out that Bayan thinks she's being hunted by a large assassins guild. Arya says that, knowing what a mess is going on in the human world, she feels sorry for poor Burn, since the girl has almost no guards of her own. Ferris cautiously asks Arya if it would not be more logical and effective to send Licht to Burn when she is killed so that the young man can resurrect her. The Demon Lord confidently replies that he does not. She adds that if a kingdom in which chaos reigns loses its queen, it will definitely be doomed. If Licht resurrects Burn, people will immediately understand who their queen really is. In fact, Burn is a Kitsune man and a fox at the same time. Licht understands that such a serious mission is not only to protect Burn herself, but also the status of the girl. Flatica still says that if Burn is still killed, then Licht will have to resurrect her. It turns out that Arya can assign such a task to only one member of the team Licht. The young man confidently replies that he will take up the task. Arya happily says that she never doubted him, and is very happy about this decision from the guy. Licht looks at Ferris peacefully, when suddenly Arya says that she forgot to notify the guy about another important news regarding the task. Licht will be in Burn Castle disguised as a friend of the girl. The Demon Lord asks the guy not to draw any unnecessary attention to himself, to which Licht replies that he will be very attentive and careful, so she does not have to worry. Arya replies that she got something important for such an occasion. Suddenly she turns around and the clothes on her body turn into a black uniform consisting of a skirt, a jacket, and a beret with a coat of arms. Licht can't take his eyes off the girl, as she looks really unusual. Arya asks if the outfit suits her, while Licht is genuinely surprised that the Demon Lord will go on a mission with him. Suddenly, Licht notices blood on Arya's uniform, and he wonders where she got it. Ferris and Licht look at Arya and notice that she is somehow suspiciously inspired, to which the Demon Lord orders them to be silent. At Burn Castle, a maid comes into her room with a tray on which there is food, while the girl goes about her business. Burn thanks the maid, who turns out to be named Anna, and asks her to put her tray on the table. The maid sees that something is wrong with her mistress, and so the girl asks when Burn will finally cheer up. The girl also notices that her mistress is under guard, so she has nothing to fear. Burn is not sure about this. Suddenly, Burn warns Anna that the girl's friends will arrive at the castle soon. She warns the maid that even though these people are a bit strange, they are not to be feared. Anna is very surprised. The maid says that since her mistress's guests are coming soon, they should be met with dignity and given a warm welcome. To this, Burn says that her friends have a far from simple character, so they should not be approached once again. Anna says she understood everything. Burn realizes to himself that the character of the guests will not be easy, since there is definitely a Demon Lord among them. Burn realizes that Anna will surely do something that the Demon Lord will not like, for which Arya will destroy her, and this cannot be allowed. Suddenly, Burn is approached by a man behind a screen that is the entrance to her chambers. He says that some people have arrived at the castle. He adds that the two arrivals identified themselves as friends of Burn and would like to meet with her. He asks what to do with them. Immediately after, the person adds that these guests are a guy and a girl. Burn doesn't know what she should do until the man behind the screen calls out the names of the guests, Mr. Licht and Mrs. Arya. Burn practically jumps up in his chair and rushes to meet the guests. The girl orders that those who arrive at the castle be immediately admitted to her chambers. Burn also calls them his friends and asks them to give them a decent welcome. The man behind the screen says that everything will be done and quickly leaves. Burn tells Anna that her mistress's friends have finally arrived. She asks not to forget that it is not worth bothering these people, and dismisses the maid. Burn praises his maid Anna, calling her a good girl. She asks the girl not to let her down, and if they manage, then the girl will thank Anna later. The maid said she would try her best. Anna slammed the door and Burn was left alone. Arya and Licht come to her. Burn sees the Lady Demon Lord and thanks her for the honor. Arya says they just bumped into an ill-mannered maid. The girl says that when she met them, she looked at the floor all the time. Burn asks you not to pay attention to her. Arya asks how Burn's situation is with the assassins. They don't have time to stay here for long. Licht noticed that that this was said by the main slacker. Arya pinches Licht and asks him to be quiet. Arya asks how Burn found out that the killer was hiding somewhere, because for an assassin, it's a failure if the victim knows about his existence. Byron confidently said that she learned about it from fortune telling. Arya asks if the girl really thinks she'll believe it. She says that if Burn invited them for fun, then they should say goodbye. Burn asks her to believe it, because she saw him with her own eyes. The girl talks about her future, in which she will be killed. Licht thinks that being a kitsune, Burn may well feel the danger threatening her. The young man turns to Arya and says that he thinks Burn is telling the truth. It's unlikely that the girl was so emotional for the sake of a joke, so maybe it's better to believe them. Arya sighs and says that since Licht thinks so, they will do everything in their power. Burn thanks the Lady Demon Lord and Mr. Licht. Arya asks if the girl knows when they will have to kill Burn approximately. The girl replies that she thinks it will happen in the next 3 days, but she doesn't know who the killer will be or how many there will be. Arya asks if it is possible to find out the time more precisely. Burn gives a negative answer. Arya puts on a serious face and says that Burn doesn't care if she gets killed, but she's more worried that someone will see her. Burn replies that it is, of course. Arya says Burn should just lock herself in this room and not let anyone in from the outside. Burn says that the country is in chaos, so it cannot completely isolate itself from the outside world. Arya says that the girl could give instructions without leaving here. If you don't meet anyone in person, then there won't be any problems. Also, there is probably at least one of the subjects whom Burn trusts. Ben replies that there is only one person among the subjects. She thinks she shouldn't meet Anna in person, so the thought makes her sad. Burn thinks that if Anna passes on her orders, they will be able to communicate with her. Arya says the issue is resolved. Plus, no one will ever know Burn's true identity. Arya also says that in case she dies, there will be a Licht next to her, who will immediately resurrect the girl. She asks the young man if the young man objects to such a plan. The young man asks Arya to wait. Arya laughs and says that Licht shouldn't be around Burn even in the bathroom, but they will definitely spend a lot of time together. Burn replies that she doesn't mind. Arya smiles and says she doesn't seem to care much about it. Burn replies that everything is correct. Licht bows and says that they will do everything in their power. Arya flops down on the bed and says that she will take a nap for now, and when the enemies come, she needs to be woken up. Licht says that everything is fine, and Burn asks if this is wise. Licht says he will do everything in his power. That's how the top secret mission to protect the Queen of Lada Country began. After a while, Burn tells us how things are now. She says that's why Anna shouldn't come into her room for the next 3 days. She also orders to inform the others about it. Anna, standing outside the door, says that it will be fulfilled. Then the girl asks if everything is all right with her mistress. Burn says Anna doesn't have to worry. If something happens, Anna should report everything to her through the door. She also says that she only allows Anna to approach the room. The girl says she will try her best. Burn says he's counting on the girl. After a while, she returns to Arya and Licht and apologizes for waiting. Arya says if Burn trusts this chatty girl too much, she can see how Anna will bring a lot of problems on them. Burn says that although Anna doesn't look serious, she knows how to keep her mouth shut. Burn says she can only trust her. Arya says that in that case everything is fine. Licht says that Bayan, in the role of the queen, has arranged her affairs well. She thought Burn would not agree to 3 days of isolation. He asks if Burn really only trusts Anna. Arya says there's no guarantee that the others won't spill the beans, and it'll be easier for them if no one tries to find out about them. Bayan says everyone is busy right now because of the adventurer riots. She says that people are stupid creatures after all. Arya says that everything is exactly like that, and Licht sighs slightly. Licht says that the preparation is complete, and then asks what they will do next. Burn says it's worth keeping yourself busy. She says they can play cards, but they'll probably get tired of it quickly. Arya yawns and says she's going to take a nap, and they can decide for themselves what to do. Arya falls on the bed and falls asleep. Burn awkwardly suggests that Licht play cards, but the young man says that he does not know the rules. The girl replies that she is very sorry. There is an awkward pause between them. Then the girl talks about Licht's abilities. She says that Licht can raise the dead. The young man thanks her. Burn says, and if she suddenly dies, is there any time limit for resurrection? Licht replies that there are no restrictions. At least it's possible for 100 years. Burn is surprised and asks about any special conditions that are required. Licht replies that nothing needs to be done additionally because he has trained on mice many times. Burn then asks what about resurrection from a distance. Licht says he thinks it's impossible. It is necessary to be right next to the deceased. Byron asks from what distance his ability begins to act. The young man says that he has never checked this, so he does not know for sure. The next moment, Burn began to bombard Licht with questions. while Area, meanwhile, was quietly dozing on the bed. After a while, Burn apologizes and says it's already late. Licht says it's okay, because he also had fun talking to the girl. Burn thinks about it. Licht asks what's wrong. Burn says she usually takes a bath at this time. She asks what they will do. Licht asks the girl to wait and says that he will wake up Area. Licht approaches the girl and tries to wake her up. Suddenly, the girl tries to bite Licht's hand, but the young man deftly evades. Area then asks what the young man wants from her. Burn says, addressing the demon lord, that she was planning to take a bath, so could the girl keep her company. Area says she doesn't mind. Burn is very happy about this. Then she shows her ears and tail and thanks Mr. Licht. The young man says that the girl has a tail. Burn says she's safe now, so she doesn't have to hide him. Area asks if Licht will go with them. The young man refuses. Burn asks if Licht is sure they'll all be safe together. The young man says that he is sure that everything will be fine. Area grabs Burn by the tail and tells her to take her to the bathroom. The girl is embarrassed and says that they need to go this way. Burn clicks a book on the shelf and suddenly the door to the secret room opens. Byron says that this room was made especially for her so that she could take care of her tail. She also says that she told people that they needed a bathroom here so as not to waste time on useless movements around the palace. Licht thinks she could sit in it safely. Area walks into the bathroom and says that a wonderful job has been done here. The demon lord takes off his clothes and plans to go to the bathroom. Bayan says she will have new clothes made for her. Area says she will be grateful. The girl asks how to use this shower and Burn is going to tell her about it. After a while, Area is already in the bathtub. She asks why Burn won't get into the water. Burn replies that she will go there later, but first she needs to get her tail in order. Area says it doesn't seem easy to be a Kitsian. She says that the girl looks after her tail so diligently that she thinks it will be well paid for. Burn grabs his tail and tells Area not to say such things. Area tells the girl not to worry, because she didn't do such little things. Area is sarcastic and says that for this, she will let her cuddle her tail when she finishes caring for it. At this time, an unknown man wanders around the castle and says that the queen is not in sight. Suddenly, he sees an unusual guy in the room and says that when he found out the situation, he was not there. He says it doesn't look like he's a servant. The man thinks it's better to keep his head down for now, although he realizes that he can kill him with a poison blade. He won't hear or feel anything. He won't even have time to figure out who killed him. The man understands that the deadline for the order is the day after tomorrow, and there are no guarantees that he will be able to get through unnoticed again. He understands that he needs to act right now. He leans out the window and uses the phone. He then releases a spike of poison that goes straight into Licht's neck. The young man falls unconscious and dies. The man understands that he has hit the bullseye, but the main problems are still ahead. Licht then wakes up and thinks he has fallen asleep. The man does not understand why Licht is alive and maybe he missed. Although he definitely hit the young man with a poison dart, it's possible that the poison didn't work. Meanwhile, Licht says it's very strange, and he probably didn't get enough rest during his vacation. Licht walks around the room and asks about Rose's well-being. Meanwhile, the man, fearing that he will be noticed, jumps off the floor and runs away. Meanwhile, Area comes out of the tub and says that the bathroom was very great. She asks if anything suspicious has happened in all this time. Licht gives a negative answer, but is very doubtful about his answer. Area asks what his insecurity means. He says that he seemed to lose consciousness for a moment, but he did not feel the presence of enemies, so it is unclear what it was. Licht says he thinks he's just tired. Area says that he rested his body, but did not rest his soul. She told Licht to say that right away. However, Area says it's not good that the young man suddenly fell. She says that suddenly the young man has contracted some kind of disease. Although she notices that it doesn't look like any disease she knows, she asks if the young man dies. Will the disease disappear or not? The young man says that most likely yes. Area becomes insane and says that she will cure him perfectly. Bayan apologizes for the expectations and asks what Area and Licht are doing. Area says that she wanted to put Licht in order, but he does not refuse. Licht says he doesn't think he can agree to that. Burn says she doesn't know what's going on with them, but she doesn't think it's anything serious. Area sits down on the bed and suddenly shudders. She says the window is open. Licht gets scared and says it's really open. Controlling Area's space is a very powerful ability, but it has a number of limitations. It allows you to take control of space, bends it, causes all objects to slow down, and gives you a huge advantage in battle. However, if the window is open as it is now, and someone decides to attack them, then space control does not work. The young man says that it looks like this old window is serious. If you don't close it carefully, it won't close completely. Burn says it's possible that people have been using this castle for many years. Arya plops down on the bed and says she's sleeping. Burn asks if she's really going to bed again. Burn says it's time for them to go to bed too. This bed is spacious. They can sleep together. Licht says they're going to lie on that sofa. Burn tells Licht not to go to sleep there, otherwise his whole body will go numb. Arya grabs Burn by her soft ponytail and falls asleep. Licht turns off the light and goes to bed. The next morning, Licht opens his eyes and sees Burn in front of him, who wishes him good morning. The girl turns to Mr. Licht and asks him why he left her alone yesterday. Licht replies that he didn't plan anything like this, but he thinks that something seems to have happened. Burn asks if Licht needs to make coffee. The young man agrees and says that he will go and wake up Arya for now. Licht walks over to the bed where Arya was sniffing sweetly. He pulls the blanket off her and says good morning to her. Arya curled up and began to turn around in bed. She opens her eyes and starts rubbing them. Everyone wishes her a good morning. The girl jumps off the bed. The girl gets dressed and asks if Licht is okay. She says he suddenly fell yesterday. The young man replies that everything is fine now. Arya is already dressed. Licht says that yesterday it was enough just to get some sleep, and what happened yesterday was a simple accident. The girl goes to the window and then calls him to the window. Arya asks if he thinks there's a suspicious guy here. Licht asks which person Arya is talking about because he doesn't see him. Arya is talking about a man who stands in the shadows. Licht apologizes and says that his eyesight is not as good as that of the demon lord. Arya says it's hard to be human. Arya opens the window. The man suddenly shuddered. Arya realizes that the man reacted to this open window. Arya asks the young man to take care of Burn. Arya says he's going to run away, and they don't have much time. Licht says he understood. Arya jumps out of their window and says she didn't even doubt it. Licht thinks Arya should act. The girl chases the man and sees that he seems to be alone. She was interested in where the man was heading. The man deftly jumps from one hill to another, trying to escape. Arya, meanwhile, says it will be an easy victory. They see that the man ran into the church. Arya goes in there and sees a lot of parishioners of the temple. The girl apologizes for the intrusion. A woman approaches her and apologizes, saying that only believers can enter here. She says they will gladly accept her if she is one of them. Arya says she has some business here. A man just ran in here. The woman asks what the girl is talking about now, because no one came here. Arya says that the woman should not try to deceive her, and it would be better to answer until she destroys their entire church. Arya gets angry and asks where that man went. Suddenly, the woman gets angry and calls for help. Suddenly, Arya is surrounded by people from the church and tells her that it seems to them that the young lady did not go where she did not need to. Arya says she doesn't think so, and she's glad they came to an agreement quickly. The woman calls Arya a cheeky and grabs a vase with a flower. She pours out the water and swings the vase, trying to hit Arya, but suddenly everything is drenched with blood. The woman does not understand what is happening. Arya smiles and says that the woman will be next. She asks if the woman now wants to answer her question. Around the woman were the bodies of her comrades. Arya smiles and starts to approach the woman. The woman asks to wait. Arya is aimed absolutely seriously. The woman says that the one the girl is looking for is here in the dungeon, and you only need to go through that closet. Arya asks about the dungeon. The woman in a panic says that everything is true. In fact, this is not a church, but the entrance to the Twilight Guild. Arya asks how many people are downstairs. The woman says that there are a maximum of 100 people in the dungeon. Arya says that she understands everything, and then she asks the woman to disappear. Arya opens the door and sees a staircase, and at the end a room from which a light could be seen. One man asked if the other man wanted to say that the queen had hired some kind of monster to guard her. The other man turned out to be a recent murderer. He said that's exactly what it is. He says he was 100 meters away, but this monster sensed him, and then it jumped out of the window and chased him. The other man says it sounds very unconvincing. The man says that the man is just trying to justify himself for an unfulfilled order. The man with glasses says that if we assume that he is telling the truth, then what should they do? Surely the queen will not publicly announce her new guard. They think that the newspapermen will pay well for such a sensation. However, before they start spreading the news, they need proof. They say that Rise can do it, because they will go there again anyway. He asks you not to talk like it's a trivial matter. The man says that this monster probably remembered her face and will be on guard now. And also, protective magic has been placed on the queen's room, neutralizing the effect of poisons. He refuses to work like that. The man asks if Rise is scared. He asks who will then carry out the order instead of her. The other man stands up and says he can do it, but only for double the fee. The man with glasses tisk and thanks Rice for creating a problem because of his cowardice. The man laughs and says that you see, his career will go uphill. The man with glasses says that if he is captured, He should not say a word about them. He tells the man not to worry, because he will kill the queen. Suddenly, a man soars into the sky, and a woman's voice is heard behind him, saying that it seems to be the wrong man. Suddenly, Arya appears behind him. Rise recognizes her in that monster. Arya says that this is the same man who ran away as soon as he saw her. She says that this man boasted that he would kill the queen, which is why she was mistaken. Rise asks how she found them. Arya replies that she was just following his trail. Rise asks about the guards, but Arya says they told her everything about their Twilight Guild. She says it's time to punish the queen's enemies, but they've probably figured it out themselves. The man attacks Arya, but the girl uses her space control ability. Suddenly, everyone around froze. The girl says that they are good at moving for people, but it still won't help. Rise screams so that no one can miss the girl, but in an instant everything is covered in blood. Rise was left alone with Arya. The girl says that only Rise is left. His friends turned out to be completely worthless. Rise couldn't believe that all this was happening in reality. Arya says that Rise didn't even have time to shout. She says she will ask one last time why they are hunting Burn. That is, the queen. Rise says they never give away their employers. Arya says that it turns out that someone from the nobility is unhappy with the queen's actions and hired them. Arya says it looks like she's right. She grabs the man's neck and says that both humans and magical creatures are the same. After a while, Byron bowed and thanked her rescuers. She said she had already sent the garrison to clean up everything. She was also surprised that Arya had destroyed the entire Twilight Guild, which had taken a lot of money to fight. Burn asks how she can thank Arya, but the girl says she doesn't need anything. Arya turns around and tells Lix that they are leaving. Burn asks them to wait. The girl thinks that Arya has done her too much of a favor. Now, even if she tells her to hang a bomb around her neck and charge, she won't be able to refuse. We need to repay the debt at least a little. She says that there is very interesting information for them in this country. She thinks that Mr. Licht will be very interested in her. Licht is surprised by this. Burn says that a long time ago, there lived a woman here, whom everyone called the Righteous. When she died, she was buried by the order of God himself, but no one knows exactly where she is buried. The most important thing is that she managed to find a book that indicated the burial place of the righteous woman. Arya is surprised by this. Byron says that by becoming queen, she gained access to places where ordinary people are not allowed. This book was under strict security, so she thinks it makes sense to study it. Lix says that if the location is known, then it will be possible to resurrect her. Arya says it's interesting, and she also lacks workers, and it's curious to look at this righteous woman. If there's a problem with her, you can always kill her again. She asks where this place is. Burn flips through the book and says that he seems to be in the woods. She gives the book to Arya and says that the details can be found on the map drawn there. Lix says if it's in the woods, it's better to get there before dark. Arya says she doesn't mind. Lix thinks that he probably won't be able to subdue her by using resurrection. It will be necessary to come up with some kind of legend for her, and it will be less suspicious if they do everything during the day and not at night. Arya says that she will go with Licht to the burial site, and then he will have to act on his own. Licht realizes that Dorothy would be useful right now. Burn calls him and says that if he has to kill the righteous woman, then let him make sure that no one ever finds her body. Otherwise, there will be a big commotion. Licht agrees, so they go to meet a new friend.